The story of the Spitfire begins with the Supermarine Schneider Trophy winner, 1931. Reginald Joseph Mitchell, who along with his team at Supermarine designed the Spitfire. Supermarine built flying boats and seaplanes. The Schneider Trophy contest was won outright in 1931 by the S6B with a world record speed of 407 miles per hour. The contest brought Rolls-Royce and Supermarine together. The Spitfire prototype K5054 first flew on March the 5th, 1936, flown by Joseph Mutt Summers. The Air Ministry placed an order for 310 Spitfires on the 3rd of June 1936. Eventually over 22,000 were built. R.J. Mitchell passed away on the 11th of June 1937. He was only 42 years old. The Spitfire was a huge advance in technology. The elliptical wing allowed the fitting of 8 machine guns, retractable undercarriage, and very efficient aerodynamics. The wing combined high-speed performance with a tight turning radius. The Spitfire was built using an all-metal monocoque construction and stressed skin panels, replacing tube and fabric manufacture of earlier designs. Joseph Joe Smith took over the Spitfire design from Mark I to Mark 24. Rolls-Royce's Merlin engine installed in the Mark I started at 1,000 horsepower with a top speed of 362 miles per hour. The engine was a 27-litre V12. Later Marks had a Griffon engine, which was a 37-litre V12. Top speed of a Mark 14 was 440 miles per hour. The Merlin engine was also used in the Hurricane, Mosquito, Lancaster, and transformed the performance of the American P-51 Mustang. Spitfires entered service in August 1938, with number 19 Squadron at RAF Duxford. In 1940, a Spitfire cost £12,000. In 2015, a restored Spitfire sold for £3.1 million. The airworthy fighter is now based at the Imperial War Museum, Duxford. The Mark IX Spitfire was introduced in 1942 to counter the German Focke-Wulf 190. It was fitted with a 2-stage supercharged Merlin engine 66 with 1,500 horsepower, and it had a top speed of 400 miles an hour. A longer nose and 4-bladed propeller and symmetrical radiators are all identifying features of this Mark. Surplus Spitfires were offered to air forces after World War II, and 20 Mark IXs were converted to the 2-seat training version. Captured Luftwaffe pilots' rooms were bugged and conversations recorded before they were sent to prison camps. None ever admitted they'd been shot down by a Hurricane, only by a Spitfire. After D-Day, Spitfires delivered beer instead of bombs to the troops in Normandy. The 1968 film Battle of Britain used real World War II aircraft during filming, and 12 airworthy Spitfires and 3 Hurricanes were flown. They were outnumbered, again, by 17 Messerschmitts and 32 Heinkels. The German aircraft were still being used by the Spanish Air Force for budget reasons up until the 1960s. The film kick-started the present-day warbird restoration business. And the word Spitfire was first used in the 16th century to describe a female with a fiery spirit. Famous pilots included Douglas Bader, the legless flying ace. His disability meant he could endure more G-forces before passing out. His blood was less able to drain away from his head. Modern G-suits squeeze the legs to keep blood in the upper body. He was shot down in August 1941 over France and imprisoned in Colditz. Flying Officer Eric Bloch destroyed 26 enemy aircraft between May 1940 and the 3rd of August 1941. He was the highest scoring Spitfire pilot of the Battle of Britain. He was shot down and killed by flak over the Pas de Calais. Flight Lieutenant Adolphe Sailor-Milan was a South African pilot whose first job was in the Merchant Navy. He was an inspiring leader, excellent shot and natural pilot. Adolphe changed our air formations from VIX of 3 aircraft to the Finger 4, which the Germans used, which is still being used by fighter pilots today. He also wrote the 10 rules of air fighting. The most well known is never fly straight and level for more than 30 seconds in the combat area. Wing Commander Bob Stanford Tuck was the first Spitfire ace with 27 kills. He used the tactic of attacking bombers head-on. He was shot down in 1941 over France. He escaped from Stalag Luft 3 in 1945 and met up with Russian forces. He was then repatriated to England. After the war, Bob shunned the publicity and instead found peace and contentment on his mushroom farm, where he successfully farmed mushrooms for over 20 years. James Edgar Johnny Johnson was the leading Spitfire ace with 34 kills, all enemy fighters. He led a Canadian wing and he flew on D-Day on the Rhine crossing. His favourite Spitfire was a Mark 9 EN 398 with 15 kills. His famous Spitfire, which was the highest scoring aircraft flown by the highest scoring pilot, was scrapped in 1948. Pilot Officer John Gillespie McGee wrote the poem High Flight after flying a Spitfire Mark I to 33,000 feet. He joined the Royal Canadian Air Force and died in a flying accident in 1941. The Spitfires continued to be an iconic aircraft, national inspiration and a symbol of freedom worldwide. My Spitfire journey starts with a dinky Spitfire, which were brought out as toys and when the Battle of Britain movie was around. And there's lots of toy Spitfires you can buy. This is a plastic Scalecraft one, which you just clip together, and again put a battery in it and the propeller would whiz round. This is the Airfix Mark 1, and this one came in a limited edition set, which included the Supermarine S6B seaplane and the Mark 1 Spitfire. Those are the parts for the S6B. It's one of Airfix's earlier kits. These are some of the newer Airfix Spitfires. For those of you who brush paint your models, these two are brush painted, and this one is finished with an airbrush, so don't be put off if you don't have an airbrush. You can still enjoy your model making and you can get a decent result. I had to put a Hurricane in just to compare it with the early marker Spitfire with the 2-bladed propeller. After the Mark 1s and 2s, Mark 5s came along. This is the older Airfix kit. And then I put one flying in a Matchbox base. This is a Hella kit of the Mark 5 with clipped wings, which improved the rate of roll at low level. This pair of Mark 5s are the new Airfix starter kit, which is a brilliant kit and I can't recommend it highly enough. And it comes with the best stand of all time, the Shadow base. These two are 48 scale by Tamiya. This one in the desert scheme with the deeper air filter. and this one is by the ace pilot Sailor Milan. This Mark 9 is in Israeli Air Force colours and is the Italeri kit, which again is I really enjoyed making. This is the original Airfix Mark 9 from the 1960s, and this is the latest one. Again, a really great kit to build. This is the same kit in a tropical livery. This is the Hasegawa version of the Mark 9 in 72nd scale. And this is the Hella Mark 16, which was really a Mark 9 but with a Packard built Merlin engine. And a lot of them had teardrop canopies and clip wings. First Griffon engine Spitfire was a Mark 12. This is a Mark 14 by Academy. This is another Mark 14 by a company called Frog. It's a very old kit, but I love the base and I love the stand. It's chasing down a flying bomb, V1. This is a new Airfix Mark 19, which was a version for photographic reconnaissance. And this Mark 22 is the last of the line, also by Airfix. These next two are by Revell, and they're in 32nd scale. And it shows the Mark 1 and then the Mark 24, the last of the line. So the wing shape had slightly changed. It's quite interesting to show the first and the last. This is the old Matchbox kit, which gets released by Revell now and again. And this is the Revell 32nd scale model. Just to show some of the Spitfire's contemporaries, Airfix released a range of pre-painted 100 scale kits. This is the Spitfire. They were painted, you just snap them together. And they're quite nice. So the Messerschmitt 109 is obviously the most famous rival. And I suppose the advantage over the Spitfire is that more German pilots scored more kills in this aircraft. The Focke-Wulf came along and did outperform the Spitfire Mark V at the time, but was then matched by the Mark 9 version with a more powerful engine. The Mitsubishi Zero was a difficult foe for the Spitfire. The Zero had greater range and was even more manoeuvrable than a Spitfire, so you had to be careful fighting it. The Spitfire's allies, the Thunderbolt, which had the advantage of an air-cooled engine and was obviously very robust and much better for ground attack. Also its armament was better. And then the improvements of the next generation is the P-51 Mustang, which again increased the range. It used the same engine as the Spitfire, but had a newer wing design, greater range and increased firepower. And so those are the ones I've built. And this is the stash. Airfix in 48 scale. Tamiya. The older version and the newer version, 48 scale. Edward, another Airfix limited edition. ICM do a range of Spitfire kits, Mark 16s, Mark 9s. This one's got ground crew. It's Airfix in 72nd, Mark 1s, Mark 5s, and the Mark 9 kit. This is the old Frog kit, which is a Mark 8 or 9. This is the kit that includes the Flying Bomb. Hasegawa did a Spitfire, an early version. And Hella, Mark 1, and then a Mark 16. Another Airfix. And another ICM from Ukraine. This is the box from the Scalcraft model I mentioned earlier. AZ do a range of Spitfires in ACES markings. Another one of Johnny Johnson's mounts. In 32nd scale, Ravel has brought out a beautiful Mark 9. And work in progress is the new Airfix 1/24th scale model. This is a 2-seat training version and a Checkmaster resin kit of the prototype Spitfire. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the run through this stash and enjoyed seeing them Spitfires built up. Thank you very much for watching. Take care now.